Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 194. Landscape of the Demon World. Part 1. The fourth wall said, "Whe re is t's place? Don't co pyme." I was walking through the horizon of the story. To be exact, I had already been walking for 4 days. Anyone who walked through the endless piles of trash would feel like talking to the wall. I muttered towards the fragments of the story. Kim Dokja thought, "I'm going to pick that up." Since there was a considerable amount of space left in the infinite dimension space code, I stored all the stories I picked up in it. Then the fourth wall replied, "IDOT." It was comforting to not be speaking to myself. I didn't know the identity of the fourth wall, but it clearly wasn't an enemy. Rather, it was the one saving me from the exile penalty. SLEEPY. Hold on a bit more. You should say something to make it easier. It was hard to survive the exile penalty even after gaining a body, and there still seemed to be no end to the piles of trash. Maybe this pain would continue until I returned to the scenario. Some absorbed stories are causing a configuration conflict. Lamarck Kieran might be an evolutionary attribute with relatively few side effects, but the story balance was causing my incarnation body to creak. It wasn't serious yet, but if I fought or did unnecessary actions, my body might collapse again. Well, nothing was easily solved. This was why I didn't rush, despite wanting revenge on the nebulae. The scenario area is getting closer. The first thing I had to do was enter the scenario of the demon world. The Wenny man threw me to this place, but I knew how to get the scenario here. I already had a rough plan. The route I was currently following was exactly the same as Yu Jonhyuk of the 111th regression. Therefore, the plan shouldn't go wrong unless there were unusual variables in the middle. Speaking of which, there was a lot of work in Yu Jonhyuk's 111th regression. It was around the time that the author of Ways of Survival fell into a slump for a while. It was just after passing the 1000th chapter, and I remembered leaving a comment with advice on various things. I didn't know if it was because of my comment, but a new person suddenly appeared and the story changed. Suddenly, the Dakibi egg in my arm wriggled. I absorbed some of the story fragments and stroked the egg. Yes, you are cute. I felt the soul I saved awakening to a new life. It was very strange. The egg would probably hatch in 1 month. At that time, my plan would be in full swing. By the way, once this kid hatched, she couldn't be called Shin Yu-sung. What should I name her? At this time, Kim Dokja heard a sound in his ears. I crouched behind a garbage pile and held my breath. It wasn't just one or two that I felt. There were at least dozens of maybe hundreds of individuals. I peeked out to check the situation. I saw actions that didn't feel alive at all. Being similar to humans were searching the piles of stories. Their identity was clear. They were the removal slaves. They took orders from the rules of the demon realms, collecting the story fragments from the surrounding horizon to be used as fuel. They had very little intelligence and wouldn't attack unless threatened first. Kim Dokja thought, the fact that the removal slaves are moving means there is an industrial complex nearby. The industrial complexes were like cities in the demon world. They were factories that created energy by grinding broken fragments of stories, and a residential area would surround the factory. If I remembered correctly, the closest industrial complex would be the Siswitz Industrial Complex. Move faster. We are running out of fuel today. I was surprised and hid behind the garbage pile again. A demon with small wings and a single horn was flapping his wings and giving orders. It was a supervisor of the industrial complex. The fact that he came here meant the scale of the gathering was quite large. Then a removal slave approached the pile of trash that I was hiding behind. I faced it without any attempts at avoidance. Growling, The removal slave that stared at me with dumb eyes had the appearance of a chimpanzee, not a human. Perhaps its planet was destroyed and it was one of the species abducted here. They were those who lost their scenarios and relied on other beings to live. I saw the stigma 6424 on his arm. The effect of the Demon King candidate has been activated. Demon King candidate. It was an attribute I got from the 73rd Demon King scenario. Then I started to hear words that were hard to understand. I want to stop. What? Kill me. The desire to be free filled its eyes, as if this existence itself was simple. I gazed into the pathetic eyes for a moment and sighed deeply. Kim Dokja thought, I guess there is only one way. After a while, I stood with the other removal slaves at the entrance of the industrial complex. The items, including the space coat, were hidden deep inside the pile of stories I was carrying. In other words, I was naked now. It was inevitable, since I had to look like a removal slave as much as possible. In case of an emergency, I stitched the stigma 6424 of the guy who died on my left arm. Next? My plan was simple. I would enter the industrial complex by mixing in with removal slaves. It was because the screening of the removal slaves wasn't as strict as other travelers. What, today's yield is 0? However, the supervisor was more of an obstacle than I thought. I gulped as I saw the supervisor explode right in front of me. Hey, you over there. Take this brat. Put him in the fuel tank. The supervisor threw the removal slave like he was handling a machine part. The supervisor was Demon Baron Chechefin. He was a lower grade than the nobles I met in Dark Castle. Those in Dark Castle might have more stories, but a baron was a baron. He was a guy I could kill without much strain. Next? 6424. The problem was what would happen after I killed him. The masters of the industrial complexes were the top dukes of the demon world. A duke was more likely to notice when the supervisor of an industrial complex was killed. Needless to say, it was dangerous to deal with the top nobles of the demon world with my current incarnation body. I could use the Demon King attribute candidate, but I didn't want to attract attention from the beginning. In any case, I couldn't help feeling nervous for a variety of reasons as I held out my collection basket. If things became twisted here, my future plans would become considerably harder. What? You have brought a lot. Fortunately, the supervisor's face flushed red after seeing all the stories I brought. I wondered if he would find the items I hid in the pile of fragments, but I didn't think he was such a meticulous person. The supervisor flapped his wings and shouted, "Everybody, take a leaf from his book." Huh? Don't you know that the recent yield isn't good? At this rate, all of you will become fuel. The supervisor's bluff caused fear to fill the eyes of the removal slaves. No matter how much they lost, the fear of dying remained. Well done, 6424. Come in. You have entered a scenario area. I escaped from the supervisor's eyes and left the group of removal slaves. I searched through the pile and wore the items one by one. I stored what I needed and discarded the rest. I walked along the street and soon afterwards, a large square appeared. Humans were wandering around. There were also elves, djinns, and sometimes demons. It was right to call the demon world a place where people lived. Not only did humans come from different dimensions, but a multitude of species also lived here. There were merchants selling various things, and people bargaining to buy them. A similar village to paradise appeared. It was a place where people lived and stories gathered. I suddenly recalled a sentence from Ways of Survival. A city surrounded by a huge wall. The low slate roofs created an unbalanced skyline. Sometimes vehicles with steam engines were seen passing through the street. It was a city with a mixture of civilizations at various levels. Most constellations didn't watch this place, but it was also home to life. It was a place where everyone was living together with their own scenarios. This was the industrial complex. Sure enough, it was just as depicted. I might say these words when witnessing the Demon World's industrial complex for the first time. The name Demon World made this peaceful scene inconceivable. However, this place wasn't much different from Earth, where humans gathered. To the people who thought such things, I wanted to tell them a sentence from Ways of Survival. If you think about it in reverse, it might mean that the human world is just as terrible. Yes, these words. I was reminded of the contents of Ways of Survival and immersed in deep emotions. The 73rd Demon Realm Siswit's Industrial Complex. Here I had to meet a character who would fight with me against the nebulae. Of course, they didn't know they were going to do this. Some absorbed stories are causing a configuration conflict. I might need to move more quickly than I thought. To make matters worse, the exhausted fourth wall could no longer hold on. Sleep why? Eh? Hey, wait a minute? The exclusive skill fourth wall has temporarily entered a silent state. Damn it, at this time? Suddenly, the cold permeated my body and sparks started to appear. The exile penalty made my body unstable, and some people around me noticed my presence. And the exile. People scurried away from me like I was infectious. I quickly moved off the main streets. Time was running out. 3 ways to survive in a ruined world. In this place, I had to find the story's second protagonist. Chapter 195. Landscape of the Demon World. Part 2. Yua. An exile. What, how did he get in? The incarnations who saw me yelled. I ran through the crowds and hid myself in the shadows of the city. Due to the exile penalty, pieces of the story fell from my body like blood. The area around my right arm and heart was stabilized from the absorption of new story fragments, but the rest was different. The incarnations probably saw this and realized I was an exile. Where are you going? Shouldn't we report it? Well, he will die soon. Let's just go. It wasn't strange. This wasn't the first time they had seen an exile. They were afraid of exiles because they didn't know what the exiles would do. I leaned against an alley wall and the people looking at me quickly dispersed. The magic locomotive that appeared also played a role in calming the situation. The incarnations found the locomotives covered with ominous black paint and withdrew in dismay. Back off. A noble is coming. A locomotive was running through the center of the industrial complex. I didn't know for certain, but it seemed to be a guest from another industrial complex. Maybe a high-ranking noble of the demon world was on board. A person as strong as Rian Height of Paradise might be riding on that locomotive. I didn't know what was going on, but it was rushing towards the factory for some reason. The locomotive accelerated without caring there were incarnations crossing the road. The frightened commoners started grumbling. It looks like Jillabat's locomotive. Hasn't it been seen often? How would I know? It is the work of the noble scum. We need to know this time. There is a story that the 73rd Demon Realm is being integrated. It was a fairly interesting story, so I focused my hearing on the drifting words. The Demon Realm is being integrated? Those dukes are moving their heavy asses? Yes, Meladon and Burkan are moving. Won't Siswitz be really nervous? At the mention of the Duke who governed the 73rd Demon Realm, the other incarnations also intervened in the conversation. Huh. That rumor was real? But, we haven't had a demon king ruling this realm for thousands of years? Then this time, the demon king will emerge from our turf? Questions poured out and the incarnation who first brought it up spoke in an embarrassed manner. I don't know for sure. Rumor has it that a message from an oracle is passing among the demon kings. The emergence of a new demon king. The dukes seem to think they will be the one. I saw a similar conversation in Ways of Survival. It was time for this type of rumor to emerge. I had come at a great timing. Demon King. I looked at the locomotive moving away. The industrial complexes also had ranks. The nobles were those who dominated the industrial complexes. The citizens were the incarnations at varying levels. The citizens who lost their stories and fell were the removal slaves. Now there were only these three classes, but the story was completely different once a Demon King came. Demon King. A ruler who governed a demon realm, a person with absolute power in one world. There was no way for the species here to disobey the Demon King. In the demon realms, the Demon Kings had the same powerful status as a narrative-grade constellation. Perhaps the dukes of the 73rd Demon Realm were trying to keep the emergence of such a Demon King in check. Once a Demon King emerged, it was only a matter of time before the current power system collapsed. However, a Demon King must be created. It was why I came to the demon world. The second piece of information. Look for the Etika clock store. A new message arrived and I raised my head to look at the sky. In the darkness, the faint energy of the Weni man could be heard. Fortunately, the Weni man wasn't lacking common sense. There was a saying among the Dakibis that they learned morality from a Weni man, but this was because the Dakibis hated the Weni men. There you will be able to obtain what you want. I nodded lightly, and the Weni man disappeared again. The Etika clock store. It seemed the Weni man was aware of the method to get the scenario of the demon world. In fact, there was information on the clock store in Ways of Survival. Even so, I asked for information from the Weni man in order to not attract unnecessary attention. It was necessary to move in accordance to probability. I looked down at my left arm that was about to break. I couldn't get the scenario right away just because I was going to the clock store. Instead, there was a way to alleviate the exile penalty. The Etika clock store was a place that existed for that purpose from the beginning. I moved without delaying. It wasn't here. Not this alley. I pulled up my collar so that the broken story wasn't visible and ran through the alleys of the industrial complex. However, I couldn't find the clock store. It was natural. There was no such thing as a clock in the demon world. Such things were only meaningful to beings with lives as short as humans. It would have been easier to find if I could read Ways of Survival. There was no way to read the text file because there was no smartphone. If I knew this, I would have asked Baihyun to prepare a smartphone for me in advance. In the end, should I take the risk and ask someone for the location of the Etika clock store? Suddenly, someone hit me in the shoulder. What the hell is wrong with your eyes? I'm sorry. So what if you're sorry? Damn, I dropped the parts because of you. Shit. The person was roughly 15 years old. A beautiful young man was glaring at me with cold eyes while carrying mechanical parts. Well, I'm sorry. I was wondering if it was necessary to curse, but the boy spoke faster than me. If you're sorry, then quickly pick them up. I was overwhelmed by the fierce words that poured from the handsome lips and picked up the fallen parts. It felt like the old Kim Dokja had suddenly emerged. I guessed I picked up the parts too quickly, causing the boy to laugh. Damn, I'll let you off this once. Be careful next time. The boy took the parts, glanced at me with distinctive eyes, and rushed forward again. Then why? I saw his face, and felt like I had been hit in the back of the head with a hammer. It wasn't because I was scolded by someone younger than me. That guy. Like every fantasy novel, there were pretty and handsome characters in Ways of Survival. Among the pretty and handsome characters, there were those who were described as equivalent to Yoo Jong-hyuk. Kyrios Rodgrain, who I met in Peaceland, was such a case. By the way, this world contained people who were more beautiful than Kyrios. In such cases, what expression should be used? The boy was so beautiful that Yu Jong-hyuk would be slapped in the cheeks twice. In addition, this description was only attached to 3 people and ways of survival. I found you. There was a huge road and the entire shelf of the store was broken. Damn, this was already the 3rd time. It was also a shelf with work on it. Aileen, the watchmaker of Attica, suppressed a curse and asked with a calm smile. What are you doing? What am I doing? Shouldn't you already know after experiencing it 3 times? No, that's what I want to say. What do you want from a clock store owner? Aileen was nervous as she confronted the 2 demons in front of her. Demon Baron Melon. Demon Earl Salak. The 2 demons were famous nobles in the Siswitz industrial complex. One of the demons laughed as he stretched out elongated arms. Cook! Aileen groaned as she was hit in the jaw. The demon Earl Salak laughed as he carefully examined the wound left on Aileen's white skin. You're definitely not an ordinary watchmaker. However, you're not great enough for the Duke to visit 3 times. This isn't 3 humble visits to a thatched cottage. Do you know what a lying down dragon is? TL, famous episode in Romance of the 3 Kingdoms where Liu Bei recruited Zhuge Liang by visiting him 3 times. I didn't know who that is, but didn't I make it for you last time? This time I can't help you. The air inside the clock store started to freeze. It was the power of a demon noble. Aileen trembled as her face turned pale with fright. What is this, Aileen? Is this a personal loan? Someone was standing in front of the clock store. Salak saw the young man standing at the door and frowned. You are the foul-mouthed guy of the clock store. Do you want to be executed? I'll take care of him. Demon Baron Melon grabbed the boy's neck and lifted him up. The beautiful boy looked down at Melon, who told him, I feel it every time I come, but you are really pretty. I feel it every time I see you, but you are really disgusting. Melon's left hand hit the boy's belly. There was the sound of something bursting, but the boy's eyes didn't change at all. Melon stared into those eyes and laughed. This is enough to become the Duke's concubine. What is the hourly pay? If it isn't sufficient, then I won't go. Once again, there was the sound of something being hit. Eileen's expression hardened as she looked at the boy's bloody mouth. Let's take him hostage. Then the demon removed his hands like he had been joking. Who would do such a thing? We are gentlemen. The young man fell to the ground and groaned. So the offer will be rejected? Can I tell the Duke? Yes. I'm sorry, but... Surprisingly, the atmosphere smoothed out and Aileen sighed deeply. She hadn't wanted to do this task. If she accepted the job, she would be sacrificing thousands of citizens. Then Salak nodded like he understood. Then I will receive the taxes that you are behind on. The Duke asked me to do this. Tax? Until now, I have been tax exempt. It was until now, but not anymore. As expected, there was no way she could just walk away. Aileen bit her lip until it cracked as she asked, how much? 50,000 coins. 50,000 coins. It was a huge amount of Aileen. It might be different in other scenario areas, but coins were one of the most valuable currencies in the Siswitz industrial complex. There are almost no constellations here. Such a huge amount of money. I will take this little boy if you don't pay. If he becomes a concubine, then you can get 50,000 coins. The threatened boy was unconcerned and whistled at the threat. Wow. 50,000 coins. Aileen, don't pay the tax and get the money. I will make that cheeky mouth scream soon. Really? Shit, I'm looking forward to it. Despite the young boy's words, Eileen's expression was filled with despair. She had a long relationship with this boy and knew that no matter his dirty words on the surface, deep inside he was thinking differently. An ultimatum emerged from the mouth of the demon Earl. Aileen Makerfield. Accept the Duke's proposal. For reference, this is the last offer. Aileen was the chairman of the citizens. She could get to this position because of her strong heart. Aileen hesitated before opening her mouth. Rattle. Then someone entered the clock store. What? The first thing that greeted me wasn't the owner of the clock store. I saw the demon nobles who were uncomfortable with the uninvited visitors. I had roughly heard the situation outside and knew what was going on. The beautiful young man was lying on the ground with eyes full of hatred. I replied while staring closely at the beautiful boy instead of the demons. A customer, my answer was polite, but the demon expressions turned fierce. Is it a citizen? I don't know where you came from, but leave. We're collecting taxes now. Taxes, making a lot of money and paying higher taxes. Why is it suddenly making a low amount of money and paying higher taxes? What? I passed by the demon nobles and approached the shopkeeper. Hey! Wait! The bewildered demon nobles stretched out their arms to grab me, but they didn't reach. The demon nobles made expressions of surprise as I lightly shook them off. Instead of dealing with them, I glanced at the clocks on the broken shelf. I carefully picked up one of them. There are many good things. Aileen seemed to sense something and approached me. There are always good things. A good owner rarely appears. I couldn't help smiling. This was really the tone of Ways of Survival. The planet Lindbergh's magic engineer, Aileen Makerfield. I glanced at the nervous Aileen. Inside her, the needle must be ticking. Would the suspicious customer who suddenly appeared be the rope of hope or the person who dropped her into hell? I decided to relieve some of her worries. I would like to order something special. Can you make one for me? Aileen's eyes grew bigger at my words. There was only one type of customer who would come here for a special thing. Aileen saw the demon nobles and asked carefully, "What is the commission fee?" I smiled at her before staring at the demon nobles who were staring at me. 50,000 coins. Chapter 196. Landscape of the Demon World. Part 3. Wait a minute, you are... The eyes of the beautiful young man grew wider as he recognized me. Before the young man could open his mouth again, the quick-witted Aileen hurriedly accepted my coins. 50,000 coins. Okay. Is it really 50,000 coins? The astonished boy's mouth dropped open as he glanced between Aileen and me. 50,000 coins weren't that big in terms of the scenarios, but it was a substantial amount in the demon world. It was an area that the constellations hardly ever visited due to the demon kings. Of course, by my standards, 50,000 coins was petty cash. The Kimdo Jaga's legend first part has been completed on Peaceland. The pioneers of the area are preaching faith in you. 15,000 coins have been acquired. I even received coins in real time. This was the good thing about being a constellation. Even without the sponsorship, I made money just by being famous. The stiffened demon nobles belatedly reacted. Who are you? I looked at their information. Demon Earl Salak and Demon Baron Melon. They were moderately well-known collectors in the Siswitz industrial complex. I understand, customer. Usually, I would bow politely, but courtesy was just counterproductive to these guys. They were hyenas who liked to eat those who showed weakness or fear. You, now. The demon baron, Melon, raised his energy at my tone. Let it go, Melon. Salak watched the situation and dissuaded Melon. The Earl looked like he was eating with an unwelcome guest. The character Demon Earl Salak is looking at you with curiosity. Your understanding of the character Demon Earl Salak has increased. I didn't miss this opportunity to use a skill. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Then I started to hear Salak's thoughts. This guy can easily pay 50,000 coins. A citizen can never pay this amount. Besides, look at that relaxation. 50,000 coins is obviously a pittance for him. Who is this? This is the first time I've seen him in the area. Wait a minute, that demonic energy. Don't tell me. It was going as I thought. No, it was better. In any case, the Siswitz industrial complex was bursting with stories about the new Demon King. If so, it wouldn't be bad to leak misleading information to them. I spoke in a voice full of bravado. You must have already guessed. I spoke in Yu Jongyuk's tone, and Salak's complexion changed. He nodded as if his thoughts were correct and then spoke politely to me. Noble demon, I am belatedly greeting you. Do you happen to be visiting from the Jilabat industrial complex? It looks like your ears are working properly. However, you didn't give any notice that you were visiting this area. Do I have to tell my route to someone like you? That. I'm sorry. He was convinced by my short answer. The right to move without prior notice. He must be at least Marquis grade. There is nothing good about getting entangled with the Jilabat industrial complex. After the brilliant misunderstanding, Salak bowed to me and elbowed Melon. Let's go. Huh? But. We only needed to get it. Melon belatedly nodded at his superior's sober judgment. Melon took 50,000 coins from Aileen and warned in a fierce voice. This time you got lucky. Don't expect it to happen next time, Aileen. The two demon nobles left the watch store. Maybe Salak would report this to his boss immediately. It didn't matter. I couldn't think up to there. The clock store was filled with energy once the storm passed. It was the beautiful boy who broke the atmosphere. Isn't this considerably big? Who the hell are you? He looked up at me with sparkling eyes, and I smiled quietly. What is your commission? Aileen belatedly came to her senses and asked me. That, by the way, are you a noble? The demons had misunderstood, but there was no way Aileen should misunderstand. I shook my head. I'm not a demon noble. Then. I quietly took off my coat as an answer. Sparks appeared and the broken story fragments fell down. Shock appeared on Eileen's face as she checked my body. An exile? Then the special request. That's right. Eileen's face was white because she could guess the scale of my story with one glance. IIVE never had a story of this magnitude. Only you can do it. You are the story expert of the Siswitz industrial complex. Eileen's expression shook at the words story expert. As my consciousness started to collapse, I grabbed her shoulders and added. Fix me, Aileen Makerfield. My consciousness flickered while I sensed Aileen and several strangers. There were a few voices following me. How can an incarnation have a story of this magnitude? Who is he? There are a mixture of stories that don't fit the norm. Oh my god. Isn't this a legendary story? Is this really an incarnation? I don't think this is the status of an incarnation. He ate these dangerous fragments and are still alive. I wouldn't have suffered so much if the level of Lamarck Kirin was higher. If the absorption rate was high, it would be possible to neutralize the effect of mixing story fragments. However, that wasn't my current situation. Like the human immune response, different stories were attacking each other to defend themselves. We need to stabilize this as soon as possible. Eileen's voice was tense. Aileen Makerfield. According to Ways of Survival, she was a magic engineer on the planet Lindbergh. She studied for a long time and learned that the essence of this world was the story. She didn't achieve transcendent, but she was one of the few incarnations with the attribute of story expert. My consciousness flickered a few more times. Then strength gradually started to return to my body. The chills caused by the exile penalty were reduced and the pain of my body alleviated. The right arm of the poor sword master and broken heart of a young gold dragon didn't collide with the other stories and safely permeated my body. Indeed, it was a good choice to visit Aileen. I finished checking my body and slowly opened my eyes. There was the beautiful ace of a young boy in front of me. I felt it before, but he really was pretty. It was better to express his appearance as a girl than a boy. Wah! The surprised young man suddenly screamed. I tried to slowly raise my body, but I couldn't move. Looking closer, my body was tied to the operating table. It seemed to be a technique to suppress the power of the story. I looked around and found that there was only the boy. Perhaps he was a bit relieved to know I was tied up, and the boy opened his mouth. "Hey, what are you?" No, this situation was better. I needed some time along with these guys anyway. I told him, "What do you think?" "You like quizzes." "Who said that?" "In any case, make a guess." Intrigue filled the eyes of the young boy. As expected, it was a good catch. The young man thought about it before asking me, "Are you a returnee?" "Returnee? Why do you think that?" It doesn't make sense for a common citizen of the demon world to have such a large amount of money. It's okay. Continue. You said that you're not a demon, and I don't think you are a normal incarnation. You also have many rare stories. You seem to be somewhat strong. Then there is only one answer. HRMM. How is it? Is my reasoning correct? I looked at his brightly shining eyes and somehow wanted to make fun of him. Your reasoning is right, but you need one premise. What's the premise? The premise is that all returnees are strong. The beautiful young man's expression became strange at my words. What do you mean by that? Don't you know what a returnee is? They are those who return to their planets after gaining a powerful strength from another dimension or planet. How can those people be weak? I don't know. You haven't met all returnees in the world, right? That. For example, some returnees might not want to return because they hate their planet. The expression of the young boy hardened. You are frustrated because you moved to a different dimension several times, but didn't get much power. You got a new body, but you don't have any talent. Wait. You became frustrated by your lack of talent and decided to sit still in one place and live an ordinary life. Who are you really? I grinned and opened my mouth. Hayoung. Are you happy with your life in the demon world? What? The exclusive skill character list is activated. Plus. Character information. Name, Jang Hayoung, Aslan Maker Field, age, 23 years old, 15 years old. Constellation support, none. Private attribute, dimensional mover, hero, estranged from birthplace, rare, master of the wall, myth. Exclusive skills, unidentified wall LV1, spiteful tongue LV3, grumbling LV5, laziness LV3, sloth LV3, lethargy LV4. Plus. Grumbling, laziness, sloth, lethargy. Who would see this guy's information and think he was the second protagonist of Ways of Survival? If Yu Jong-hyuk saw this, his pride would be hurt by the fact that his name was on the same list. How are you? However, Jang Hayoung wasn't originally like this. He tried and tried again, but the results weren't good. A huge wall was always obstructing him. The results didn't match the process. Oh, you don't use your real name here. Should I call you Aslan? How do you know my real name? The surprised Jang Hayoung backed up towards the wall. I looked at him and recalled old memories. Authornym. I think it is better to create a new character. If I hadn't left the comment at that time, would Jang Hayoung exist in today's world? In addition, it should preferably be a pretty girl. Maybe this was why I felt responsible for this guy. I didn't know if the author created this character because of me. However, The setting, HRMM. Since Jong-hyuk is a regressor, it is enough if the new character is a dimensional mover. At the very least, if I hadn't left this comment, the second protagonist wouldn't have to keep moving dimensions. You're not without talent. You just don't know your talent. What? What does that mean? I was just opening my mouth again when the door burst open. Is that Aslan? What's the fuss? Aileen. Aileen saw Jang Haeung's face and glanced at me. What are you? What did you do to him? I shrugged without saying anything. Some people could be seen behind Aileen. Maybe there were members of the Siswitz Civil Council. They were the last conscience against the Duke's ambitions. I liked such people. I could deal with Jang Haeung later. I needed to take care of this side first. Duke Siswitz. What? He is ambitious. He refused a high-ranking position in another demon realm and came to this remote area. The members of the Civil Council glanced at each other at my words. I stared at Aileen and said, maybe Duke Siswitz asked you to make him giant soldiers. Is that right? Eh? That guy, he got a taste when he went on a tour of the demon world. That's why he is making such an unreasonable request. He doesn't know his subjects. How do you? The members of the Civil Council were greatly confused by the information I knew. The surprised Aileen seemed to be stiffening. I didn't miss this chance. You have refused him 3 times, and next time, he will take you by force. Are you ready? The faces of Aileen and the citizens darkened at my words. It was certain. They were powerful on their own planets, but they couldn't compare to a Duke of the Demon world. I enjoyed the silence before saying with a grin. If you listen to my conditions, I will stop the Duke for you. It was puzzling for them. The exile who suddenly appeared not only knew this information but also offered a ridiculous proposal. It was Aileen who struggled to shut her mouth. You, who the hell are you? Yes, it started from here. I wish I could say that I was Kim Dokja, but that wasn't possible yet. If I revealed my name here, the constellations on Earth would know I was still alive. Then, let's go back to the original work. I recalled the 111th regression in the novel and declared in a voice as evil as possible. My name is Yu Jong-hyuk. I am here to become the Demon King of the 73rd Demon Realm. Your notoriety is spreading in the 73rd Demon Realm. Yu Jong-hyuk stared up at the sky the moment he heard the message. What? Of course, the sky didn't answer. Then Yu Jong-hyuk's expression changed strangely. Yu Jong-hyuk thought about something for a moment before staring at the sky with disbelief, muttering, Kim Dokja?